There is a feeling around Baltimore right now that change is hovering in the air. Even if nothing official has happened yet, when you look at this Ravens season as a whole, it becomes harder and harder to argue that everything should simply stay the same. The conversations happening around the team are not about whether adjustments are needed, but where those adjustments should begin and how deep they should go. That uncertainty has created tension because the Ravens are not a bad team stuck in a rebuild. They are a talented roster that keeps running into the same walls at the most important moments. One thing that feels clear is that the coaching staff will not return entirely untouched. It is difficult to imagine the Ravens bringing everyone back without at least one significant change. When teams fall short with championship expectations, alignment becomes a major topic. If the vision at the top does not perfectly match what is happening on the field, that gap eventually forces a decision. Sometimes it is not about someone being terrible at their job, but about whether the voices in the building are still pushing the team forward, or simply repeating familiar patterns on the offensive side of the ball. That conversation becomes especially uncomfortable. Todd Monken has established himself as one of the more respected offensive minds in football, and that matters. Even the idea of him becoming available would immediately catch the attention of multiple teams around the league. That alone should make the Ravens pause when you have a play caller who is widely viewed as valuable. Moving on from him is not a small decision. It is a gamble that demands a clear and convincing plan behind it. The frustrating part for many fans is the idea that changing the offensive coordinator while keeping everything else intact feels like spinning in place. It does not solve the deeper questions. We have seen this cycle before in Baltimore, where coordinators are replaced, systems are tweaked, and yet the same problems resurface when the pressure is highest. At some point, it becomes fair to ask whether those changes are addressing the root of the issue or simply buying time. Todd Monken's tenure has not been perfect, and that needs to be acknowledged honestly. There have been stretches where the offense starts slowly, loses rhythm, or fails to maintain aggression when momentum is on its side. Those moments stand out because they feel avoidable at times. It looks like an offense that forgets its own identity for long stretches of a game. That frustration is real, and it is part of the evaluation. At the same time, context matters. This offense has dealt with instability along the offensive line and a steady flow of injuries that force constant adjustments. Every team faces adversity, but not every coordinator adapts as well as Monken has shown he can. Over 3 seasons, the production speaks loudly. Baltimore finished as the best rushing offense in football this year, and still managed to be one of the better passing teams despite relying on backup quarterbacks for extended periods. That is not accidental success. Looking back further, the pattern becomes even clearer. 2 seasons ago, the Ravens were among the very best in both rushing and passing. In Monken's first year, they were near the top again in both categories. Across 6 total opportunities, 3 rushing seasons and 3 passing seasons, the offense only slipped outside the top 5 one time. That kind of consistency is rare, especially in a league built on parity and constant change. It suggests a system that works, even when conditions are far from ideal. That is why the idea of moving on from Monken feels like a step backward to many people. It is not that he is flawless, but that his track record shows progress and adaptability rather than stagnation. If the Ravens choose to remove him while keeping the same head coach and the same overall structure, it raises uncomfortable questions about accountability and direction. On the defensive side, there is a different but equally important discussion. Zach Orr is a young coach with a lot of potential, and no one can deny that the defense showed improvement as the season went on. Still, the same slow starts that plagued the unit last year appeared again. Early season struggles, soft coverage, questionable blitz timing, and issues with tackling and discipline became recurring themes. Those are not small details. They shape games and ultimately seasons. It is fair to point out that the defense was not handed an ideal situation. The lack of consistent pass rush, especially after key injuries, made life much harder. Any coordinator would struggle under those circumstances, but just like on offense, context does not erase patterns. When the same problems show up repeatedly, they demand attention. Growth matters, but so does urgency, especially for a team that believes it is built to contend right now. The most uncomfortable truth in all of this is that these conversations should not be happening in isolation. When execution issues pile up, when penalties and sloppy play show up in big moments, and when the team looks unprepared at critical times, Responsibility ultimately flows upward. That is not personal. That is how football works. The head coach sets the tone, the standards, and the culture that determine whether those mistakes become rare exceptions or familiar frustrations for many fans. Faith in John Harbaugh's ability to guide this team to another Super Bowl has steadily eroded. That does not mean he is a bad coach. It means that his message may no longer be creating the necessary edge in the Lamar Jackson era. The Ravens have consistently been competitive, often dominant in the regular season, yet something keeps breaking down when the stakes are highest. Over time, that pattern becomes impossible to ignore. The danger now is choosing the easiest change instead of the right one. Swapping coordinators while leaving the foundation untouched may delay a larger decision, but it does not eliminate it. It risks wasting years of prime talent while hoping that a familiar approach suddenly produces a different outcome for a franchise that prides itself on clarity and long-term vision. This moment feels defining. The Ravens are standing at a crossroads where every move will signal what kind of organization they want to be moving forward. Whether they prioritize continuity, comfort, or bold change will shape not just next season, but the entire direction of the Lamar Jackson era from this point on. What makes this situation even heavier is the broader league context surrounding the Ravens right now. This is no longer a quiet internal debate happening behind closed doors. The questions about Baltimore's direction have reached a national level, and that alone changes the pressure on the organization when discussions about coaching stability and leadership start becoming common across the league. It reflects a perception problem, not just a performance issue. The Ravens are being viewed as a team stuck between eras rather than one clearly moving forward. When you look deeper into the numbers, some of the concerns feel even harder to dismiss. Close games have consistently gone the wrong way under this regime. Games decided by a single possession often expose discipline, preparation, and situational awareness more than raw talent. Over time, Baltimore has struggled in those moments, and that trend stretches far beyond a single season. Those are the types of games where coaching, decisions, game management, and emotional control matter most, and they continue to define the Ravens in uncomfortable ways. This is why the idea of simply changing a coordinator feels unsatisfying. It does not address the pattern. If the Ravens truly believe they are built to win now, then every decision should reflect urgency, not caution. Keeping the same leadership structure while hoping for marginal improvement sends the opposite message. It suggests comfort with being very good instead of obsessed with being the best. And that distinction matters in a league this competitive. There is also a real emotional element at play. Within the fan base, for the first time in the Lamar Jackson era, there is a noticeable sense of detachment creeping in. Fans will still watch, still care, but the blind trust is gone. When expectations are high year after year and the ending feels familiar every time, frustration turns into fatigue. That is dangerous for any franchise, especially one that prides itself on its connection with its supporters. John Harbaugh's legacy in Baltimore is not up for debate. He has been a stabilizing force, a respected leader, and a coach who helped deliver a championship. But longevity can be a double-edged sword. Over time, even strong voices can lose their sharpness. Messages that once inspired can become routine. Accountability can soften, not because of negligence, but because familiarity replaces urgency. That is often when organizations face their hardest decisions. The Ravens now have to decide whether they believe this core leadership group can truly evolve, or whether it has reached its natural ceiling. Evolution is not impossible, but it requires honest self-evaluation and bold action. It cannot be achieved by cosmetic changes alone. If the belief inside the building is that a new voice is needed, then that belief has to be acted on fully, not halfway. What complicates things further is the presence of Lamar Jackson. When you have a franchise quarterback in his prime, time becomes more valuable. Every season is an opportunity that cannot be recovered. Decisions made now will directly impact how much of that window remains open. Playing it safe risks squandering that advantage, especially when other teams in the conference are aggressive, creative, and unafraid of change. The defense, while improved in certain areas, still reflects some of the same organizational issues. Slow starts, lapses in discipline, and communication breakdowns are not just schematic problems. They point back to preparation and consistency. A defense should not need months to find its footing, especially when expectations are championship level from day one. Improvement late in the season is encouraging, but it does not erase the damage done early. Ultimately, the Ravens are being forced to confront who they are right now, not who they were or who they hope to be. This moment is about identity as much as it is about wins and losses. Are they an organization willing to disrupt itself in pursuit of greatness? Or one content to stay competitive, while trusting that things will eventually break their way? Every signal matters. From which coaches are retained to how publicly confidence is expressed in the current direction. Fans, players, and the rest of the league are watching closely. The next move will not just shape the upcoming season, but will define how the Ravens are viewed for years to come. Especially as the Lamar Jackson era continues to unfold under increasing pressure, there is also the question of internal accountability, which often gets lost when discussions focus only on play calling or schemes. When the same mistakes appear season after season, whether it is penalties at critical moments, poor situational execution, or emotional lapses, it points to habits that have not been fully corrected. Those habits are built during the week, in practice, in meetings, and in how standards are enforced. That process starts at the top and filters down, which is why changing one or two voices may not be enough to truly shift the culture on game day. Another layer to this situation is how players themselves respond to constant coordinator turnover. Continuity matters in the NFL, especially for quarterbacks and defensive leaders who are asked to master complex systems. Relearning terminology, adjusting to new philosophies, and rebuilding trust takes time. If the Ravens move on from another coordinator without addressing the bigger picture, they risk creating instability for the very players they are counting on to carry them forward. That kind of reset can stall development instead of accelerating it. What makes this offseason so critical is that the margin for error is shrinking. Other teams in the conference are evolving quickly, adapting their schemes, and finding creative ways to maximize their talent. Standing still or making half measures is effectively moving backward. The Ravens do not lack talent, resources, or organizational credibility. What they are being tested on now is conviction. The decisions made in the coming weeks will reveal whether this franchise is ready to fully confront its reality or continue navigating around it. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support keeps us bringing you the latest news on the Baltimore Ravens. And hey, drop your take in the comments below. We want to hear from the flock. In what could be one of the most electrifying moves of the offseason, whispers around the league suggest the Baltimore Ravens have secured KHALIL Mack, a player whose very name strikes fear into opposing quarterbacks. If these rumors hold any weight, the Ravens' front seven might be entering a new era, one that could redefine defensive dominance in the NFL. Mack, renowned for his relentless pressure and uncanny ability to disrupt defenses, would immediately elevate a unit already celebrated for its physicality and discipline. Analysts are already speculating how his presence could transform Baltimore's defensive schemes, potentially allowing coordinators to unleash more creative blitz packages while keeping coverage flexible. The mere idea of Mack lining up alongside the Ravens' existing linebackers and defensive linemen has caused a flurry of discussion on social media and sports talk shows. Fans are imagining the kind of havoc this tandem could wreak on quarterbacks, particularly in tight games where every sack or forced turnover counts. Mack's versatility, equally comfortable rushing from the edge, dropping into coverage, or stuffing the run, would give Baltimore the freedom to mix looks and disguise intentions, making opposing offensive lines second-guess every snap. It's the kind of strategic headache coaches dream about but rarely get to execute at such a high level. Some insiders hint that the move could signal a shift in how the Ravens approach their defensive identity, known historically for toughness and depth. Baltimore now appears poised to inject a true superstar into a core that already boasts both speed and strength. The mere speculation of Mack in purple and black jerseys has stirred conversations about playoff matchups, divisional supremacy, and the potential for record-breaking defensive performances. While front offices remain tight-lipped, the rumor alone has sent ripples through the league, with commentators debating whether any quarterback could withstand such a relentless front seven. Of course, until official confirmation arrives, all of this remains conjecture. But in the world of NFL speculation, few scenarios are as tantalizing as KHALIL Mack bolstering one of the league's most feared defensive units. If it happens, the Ravens' defense could become a nightmare for opposing offenses, rewriting expectations and perhaps even reshaping how dominance is measured in today's game. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay in the loop with exclusive news on our Baltimore Ravens, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what the flock thinks. Drop your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next one.